What's up, everybody? In this video, we're going to be talking about basic photo editing. To do that, we are going to go up to the top of our screen where it says image, click on that, and that's going to open up our image menu. Anything that has to do with coloring, brightness, contrast, usually you can find in this menu. For example, we talked a little bit about color modes in Photoshop. If you go into the mode menu, you can see you can change the color mode. Right now, this adorable photo of my dog Apollo is RGB, which means it's a web-based photo. If I really wanted to make it a print-based photo, I could click CMYK, but we're going to keep it at RGB for now. That's totally fine. So let's go back to the image menus, and what we're going to do is we're just going to move down one row, and we're going to click Adjustments, or hover over Adjustments, rather. And you're going to see there's a bunch of different options here for you. We're not going to go over all of these, especially because some of them are pretty self-explanatory. There's 2 or 3 things on here in particular that I want to talk to you guys about. And the first one is brightness and contrast. So brightness and contrast, we're going to click that really quick. And what comes up is this little window that says brightness and contrast. You have 2 scales, and just make sure your preview is checked off while you're doing this, but you see it just, adds more light or takes away light from your photo. Very simple. And then contrast brightens the bright areas and darkens the darker areas. So it gives it a little bit more of a dramatic effect. So these are some really simple ways to edit your photo. I like the brightness and contrast of my photo already, so I'm just going to hit cancel. And then we're going to go back up to our image menu and adjustments. Now, these 3 things right here are a little bit more advanced. This is something we might cover in our photography unit, or something that you might go in a little bit more depth if you take a photography class here. But anyways, we're going to skip down, and we're going to go to hue/saturation. That's my second tool that I want to talk to you about. So you see another little window pops up, and this time you have 3 scales, and these ones are interesting because they have colors kind of associated with them. Now, hue and saturation is probably the tool that when I'm making collages or fun mixed media pieces on Photoshop, I use this tool the most. Now, let me show you what happens if you mess around with the hue scale. So just a fun fact, hue is actually another word for color. So when you're changing the hue of something, you're changing the color of it. If I move this scale to the left, you're going to see that those walls that are kind of like a yellow tone white, they're turning red. And, now the tongue is turning purple. It pretty much just changes the hue of your entire photo. This is cool if you're looking for some type of futuristic effect. It kind of reminds me of that TikTok filter, the Planet Her one. But anyways, let's go back to the middle here, and I want to show you the other scales. So saturation, the word saturation means intensity of color. And that's why you'll see when you look at the scale, as you go more towards the left, the intensity of the color goes down, and that's why you kind of get that gray effect. The opposite effect happens as you move to the right. You can see that doesn't always look that great, but it does kind of give it a little bit more vibrancy. Okay, and now lightness and darkness, I don't recommend using this scale because you can see it's just kind of like a less effective version of brightness and contrast. It kind of gives like a dull addition of light and darkness. So I pretty much avoid that scale completely, but if it's an effect you're going for, then go ahead. Now, there is one more thing on here that I wanted to show you guys, and that is the Colorize tool. So you may be wondering, okay, so I can use the hue scale to change the color of my photo, but what if I want the entire photo to be one of these colors as opposed to, the eyes turning purple and the light turning green, if you know what I mean? Well, you can actually check off this colorize box right here, and then when you move around this hue scale, you can see that it colorizes the entire image. You'll notice that if you look at the saturation, it automatically brings it down a little bit. I like to bump up that saturation a little bit to make it more dramatic. But yeah, this is a really cool tool that gives you the ability to really do some crazy photo editing. Alright, so enough with that. We're going to hit cancel and go back up to the image menu, and let's look at black and white this time. Now, fair warning, okay? The black and white tool actually doesn't always work, and the reason why it might not work is because if you have a CMYK file, this, along with a couple other things, won't pop up. So black and white is simple. Click it, and it turns black and white, right? That's it. I'm going to hit cancel on that, though, because there is another way to get that black and white effect, which is clicking desaturate. Like we just talked about, saturation means the intensity of color, so if you totally desaturate a photo, then it's going to give you that same black and white effect, which is super helpful when you're working with print-based files. Alright, so that's pretty much it for image adjustments. Like I said, definitely check out the image adjustments menu a little bit more, experiment with some of those things. This is the basics, but there's so much more to Photoshop, especially when you experiment and you dive in deeper. Good luck and have fun!